going to kill it here. Hello, welcome to the Push a Shot podcast, episode 58. If there were any technical problems, I honestly don't care, and you can go die. Because you know what? You get what you deserve, and we give you the content that you, huddled masses, you filthy people. Skippy, what's up with you?
Not much. I don't think I've played a video game since we last saw each other. I've been very busy. Work has been running late. I've been basically working and eating dinner and watching maybe an hour of like Nathan For You and then sleeping.
You're a salary man now, is it?
It's complicated.
But before you get on to how complicated it is, I did start watching Nathan For You. And I've been
really good.
Keeping up with it. Yeah, I really like it. Thank you for the recommendation.
I'd seen just random episodes because we had it on at one point when I was at like a friend's place, and really loved the episodes that I saw. And I finally went back in the last week and watched the episodes in order. And god damn, every single episode of that, first of all, is like fantastic. It's great.
Yeah.
And just as a whole, I that's definitely my top. Oh god. Top two shows on TV right now.
Ooh, I don't know about
three.
Top two.
2 or 3. Well, see, the relevant is that I started watching season 2 of Fargo. Well, I say started. I watched the pilot episode of season 2 of Fargo, and it was a good episode. And I'm hearing that the entire season is really good, so I'm looking forward to that. But there's not much to say about it because I haven't watched any more of it. But yeah, so I feel like I get more out of Fargo, so it's probably listed higher than Nathan For You because Nathan For You is a very specific thing. But maybe that's unfair.
Did you see the show or the movie first?
I saw the movie quite a while ago.
Okay.
And it's definitely a show where you want to.
I've only talked to one person who's seen it, and they only saw the show first, which seems weird to me. I've seen the movie.
Yeah. Watching the show first would be weird. Not because the show directly. Like, the show is really tenuously connected to the movie. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
You don't need to watch the movie to see the show, but you benefit from watching the movie for sure. And
the atmosphere of the movie is so perfect.
Yeah.
Just having that experience would probably make it different.
The movie, yeah, first of all, the movie is a must-see movie regardless of the show. But apparently the second season more closely resembles the movie also. Like, the first season kind of atmospherically and thematically it was pretty far different from the show, from the movie. But I hear the second season's a little closer and also kind of like darker and in its sense of humor and stuff. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to that. I gotta finish I'm like halfway through season 3 of Nathan For You, so God, I love it. I cannot recommend Nathan For You. Well, I actually could, because Nathan For You is not a show for everyone. I tried getting my sister and brother-in-law into it, and they hated it. So it's not like the kind of show for everyone. But if that's your kind of humor, like if you like the cringy kind of awkward stuff, it is just the best. It is really awesome. I love it so much. But yeah, no video games at all.
Well,
that's about it.
I've been about the other way. Unlike you, whose career is ramping up, my academics are ramping down for the end of the semester. Finishing up with the last finals, everything's basically done. I've been watching a lot of The West Wing, and I mentioned it earlier, but I think it bears repeating that it's a really good show, and I recommend it highly. And I wanted to talk about just one thing with it, one specific thing. And this is kind of a general Aaron Sorkin thing as a writer. But
is it Aaron Sorkin?
Yeah, he created the show. I like him. He's a good writer.
We can get into it. Say what you wanted to say.
It's a very distinct kind of writing that you can tell he wrote it, but it's good. Anyway, something I noticed that is done effectively in the show is that characters don't tend to just state what they're thinking. That they won't just come out and say whatever it is on their mind. Oftentimes they'll just kind of keep it in, and they'll just say, okay. And that comes up a lot, that there's these really loaded okays that are seriously prominent in that show. There's at least a few per episode where a character will just say okay and they mean a bunch of other things in it, and it's clearly a device that he likes, but it works. He does it probably better than anyone else I've seen write that way.
The thing about Aaron Sorkin is his devices, and I feel like he doesn't have much of a grasp on how. I guess he's not. I'm not his demographic, and I don't think you are either. Of like people who are pretty in tune with like cliches and processes of storytelling and stuff, where we detect things like plot devices and cliches that he uses constantly, and sometimes that's fine. Like Social Network was actually a great movie. I loved it. And God, what was the other one that he did that I liked a lot? I can't remember now. But he also does shit that I hate, like fucking The Newsroom, which just has some potential. Conceptually has potential, but is executed horribly. Like, so he's got that fast way of like witty dialogue and stuff that's really on the nose, where
it's kind of Joss Whedon like in some ways, but I think it works especially well on The West Wing, because the idea of that show is that you have these people who are brilliant, just really, really sharp, working well below their pay grade because they actually care about doing good service to the country and to the president.
Right.
And so
that
you have
like
it makes but it makes a lot more sense because it's a super elite position that each of them occupies.
Right.
Them being insanely witty totally fits with the story. If it wasn't like that, if they were just regular people working somewhere, it wouldn't work. But the premise of The West Wing makes it work very well.
The Newsroom does shit like, so I'll give you specific examples. There's the scene that you've probably seen posted on Facebook and shit, where it's like, it's the introduction to the show. It's the first several minutes of the show, where the anchor is at some kind of university I don't know, like interview thing where he and a few other, what I assume like news anchors or something, are being interviewed on stage in front of an auditorium of students, and they're taking questions from the students, and one of the students comes up and she's like this like really typical looking blonde academic girl, and she goes, and the question she asks is what makes America the best country in the world? And the first two news anchors that answer the question are like, freedom and integrity or something, and then it gets to him, and and he goes on this rant about how actually America isn't the best country in the world, and let me tell you why, and starts naming off statistics and stuff as to why America isn't the best country in the world, and that the question is stupid, etc., etc. And it's like, of course the question's stupid. You're making him look smart because the concept is so dumb. And then every episode focuses on, so like it takes place in like 2008, at least at first, I think, or something like that, where these big news items that were going on then, this newsroom picks up on them before all the other news places do, because they're so smart, and they're like, oh, there's a BP oil spill. Well, we better cover that, and they're like, oh, well, none of the other news places are covering that, but we will, because and it's so fake smart almost, like just like contrived.
I haven't seen The Newsroom, but I will say that didn't come up for me at all in The West Wing.
Yeah. That
in The West Wing, the characters feel like they should be way smarter than you, and they are.
Right.
So I think it works for them.
One last thing that I need to complain about with The Newsroom is that, like, the main young intern who's the new guy in the office and the only sane man in the show or whatever is named Jim, like The Office, and he looks like Jim, and he's got a crush on another lady in the office who's also in a low-ranked position, and she has a fiance that she's not so sure about, but he has a crush on her, and she obviously is literally The Office. Fuck that show. I had to get that off my chest.
You don't like The Office?
No, fuck the newsroom for
Oh,
being
oh,
for just
oh.
copying The Office.
Okay.
I love The
I
Office. It's
haven't
great.
seen the newsroom. I won't comment on it. But
Don't see it.
if he made it, I'm gonna watch it. And
Don't see it.
well, what if I like it?
You won't.
What if I like it?
You won't.
Maybe I won't. Okay. Um. So I did some stuff. I released a Metal Gear Solid video.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I promised last week on the podcast. I said I
Well, you
promise.
promised many weeks ago.
No, I didn't
First.
actually promise.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
This time I promised. I said it would be out this week, and somebody said it'll be so Friday then. And I said I didn't promise Friday, but I delivered Friday. So what does
Nice.
that fucking tell you?
I have a confession.
I'm really proud of that video.
I haven't seen the video yet.
I I think you would like it.
I was out of town all weekend, and so I couldn't watch it then, and then I
You did
forgot about
retweet
it.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I gave you a courtesy retweet, of course.
Courtesy retweet.
I know it's
Thank you for the
good,
courtesy.
so I know
Of
it's
course, of
content
course,
worth consuming. I
But
just
no,
haven't
I
gotten
was
around to it.
I mean, obviously, and we talked about this last week too. Obviously, I wasn't working on it. I'm gonna change the text thing. Obviously, I wasn't working on it that whole time, clearly. But finding free time is hard, and allocating it toward quote unquote work for YouTube is another
Yeah.
consideration to make. So I don't know. It's been a long time coming. I've been thinking about it for a while. I wrote the script for it ages ago, and I gotta say that it's been very cathartic. I feel like I've completely washed my hands of Metal Gear Solid at this point. I don't care
Nice.
anymore. I don't care.
What about when the multiplayer comes out?
I don't maybe, but I don't really care because
Yeah.
I've said what I needed to say. Within the same week, I got really into The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
I'm completely fine. I am at peace.
That's good timing.
Yeah.
Good timing. Tell
Yeah.
me about Witcher 3.
I'm glad. Yeah. Okay. So Witcher 3, Witcher 3, amazing. I knew it would be great. It's as great as I thought it would be.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Really good.
Every quest that I do is interesting.
How far have you gotten?
I have. Okay, I'm in the Bloody Baron quest thing.
Oh, okay.
I just finished burying the fetus.
Oh, yikes. It's a great quest line, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And even though that one seems especially good right now, every quest I've done has been legitimately interesting. Like one where there's like an abandoned village outside of a town, and there's a ghost haunting it, and you figure
Yeah.
out what happened.
It's kind of
That
the
there was this-
tutorial mission almost. It's
Yeah.
like the first investigative mission.
That there's this woman who got dragged off, and you find out what happened to her, and you give her soul some peace. It's just very interesting. I also like how the ghosts, the wraiths, they take on like a separate persona from the people. They aren't just like the ghost of that person.
Yeah.
It's like the ill will and the pain takes on its own kind of form.
And they treat them like a creature. Like,
Yes.
it's just a part of the world. It's not like this crazy foreign concept. Everyone's just like, oh yeah, it's haunted. Because that's what happens in this world is things get haunted. And you have to hire someone to...
That's what makes it so good, is that
Yeah.
the peasants don't really get that, but
Yeah.
Geralt gets to see it that way.
Well, you get the
player, get to see it
you
that
definitely
way too.
get like you get different perspectives, and it makes the world feel so real when you have people acting the way they should in the context of where they are in the
Yes.
universe, and
Yes.
that's something that Bethesda games and whatnot are just aren't very good at. They don't.
Oh, they're terrible.
Everything's from the perspective of the player in those games usually, and
Yeah.
and Witcher 3 thinks in terms of like, how do we make this world believable, and the pacing too of just the game in general, where obviously it's open world, so you can kind of go as you will, but you come out of that first area, which I think is the perfect length. Like, it has a lot of quests in it, and it feels big, but it's constrained enough to
Yeah.
guide you along the way. And then you get released into the world, basically, and that takes you to the Bloody Baron questline, where now you've kind of become familiar with how things work and how the world works, and you're kind of getting attached to the story, and it dives really deep into another character at the perfect time, where like before in that whole first area, you don't really get close to any characters, and then instantly, once you release in the open world, it attaches you to the Bloody Baron.
Which is part of why
fantastic.
I think Geralt is one of the most brilliant role playing devices ever. So in most role playing games nowadays, you get to pick your character. You get to choose everything about them and their race, their name, and they're basically blank slates, and you choose anything in dialogue, and it's not rooted in any character. You just get to pick what happens. But when I play The Witcher, and this was also true of The Witcher 2 while I was playing it, that you feel like it's not just you, that there's a pressure to be a Witcher, and what a Witcher is and how a Witcher acts is still up to interpretation. But you're guided in the choices that you make by this idea of being a Witcher. And even though you might not totally act like a Witcher all the time, you're still making choices that deviate from it intentionally. So, like, you're thinking of, okay, Geralt doesn't actually care about the politics here, but does he have a conscience? Like, it forces you almost to engage more with the issues.
And
because it's not just a blank slate. It's not. It's a character with mysterious grounding, but still enough to feel like there's something to work with.
Yeah,
it's really refreshing.
They ride the line between, so choices usually are quite they matter, they change things significantly, but no matter what you choose, it feels like something Geralt, it's believable for Geralt to make that choice, because they're hard decisions, and he justifies them in his own way, no matter what you do, and that's got to be so hard as a writer to there's only one thing that a true character would do, right? But you have to give the player that choice, or they could have gone another direction with it, but they give the player the choice while still somehow maintaining a consistent character. And it's I cannot say enough good things about that game. And I watched you stream for maybe an hour, and just listening to the music again. The music didn't strike me the first time I played through it, but then a few months absence and seeing you play it again now, I realized how much the music actually matters. It's not very noticeable most of the time, but it sets the scene really well. It does what game music should do, which is stays in the background, but is kind of integral to the atmosphere of each scene. It's really good. I love it.
It is. The music in particular, the vocals in the combat tracks, like that, like it's so there's nothing like it, honestly. There's no music like that in games.
It's really unique, and they use instruments that sound like they're from the world, and then I don't know if you've seen any yet, but sometimes like a band will be playing somewhere and you can hear an actual soundtrack from the game being played by the band. Sorry to spoil that for you, but that's just a random thing that happens. And oh god, you just need to keep playing that game. It stays good too. Like, a lot of people talk about the ending, the last parts of it, and then there's one part where it gives you like 5 different quests at the same time and you have to choose. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm talking about like just the general pacing. A lot of people say, oh well, I don't really like that section of it, but I enjoyed it all the way through. There was definitely a point where I stopped because Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, but then I got right back into it and had no problem just finishing that game.
I'm really glad that I just kind of get to power through it. Like, I don't know, I'm appreciating this experience.
It's good timing if there's nothing else you're really into, and I also recommend just play that game, like role play that game as much as possible. Like I didn't use fast travel very often unless I needed to.
I noticed that I didn't really want to fast travel most of the time. I wanted to just go there, and not even on horseback. I wanted to like run there.
Yeah, it helps that their system is signposts that you have to discover, so you can't just fast travel from anywhere. You have to actually get to civilization, kind of.
Yeah. And like, even though it seems like a small thing, the small things wind up building up and being the important things. They're just being being forced to go back to a signpost to be able to fast travel somewhere, it gives you that extra moment where it's like, well, why don't I just go there?
Yeah.
And that is huge.
Yep.
You can't understate how important that is in a role playing game nowadays. In a game with fast travel, it giving you any kind of gentle nudge toward physically going to a place. That's huge.
Yeah. That's something that Red Dead Redemption did okay, although it was more spread out, so there was a little more incentive to use this fast travel because of the amount of time it took. But yeah, you give people a horse to ride on and scenery to look at, and maybe some things along the way to find. Those little incentives. Basically, if you make your game good enough, people aren't going to want to skip sections of
exactly.
it. That's really what we're getting at. Is that you giving the ability to fast travel anywhere, people aren't going to use it if they're having fun getting from point A to point B. And that's something that Just Cause 3, I haven't fast traveled in Just Cause 3 except maybe like once or twice, because wingsuiting there is much more fun. It's much slower, but it's totally worth it. There's just no need. And it's such an awesome game. And the expansions have come out, or one expansion has come out, The Heart of Stone. And I want to finish The Witcher 2 before I get back into The Witcher 3, just to keep things consistent in my head. But the next expansion, they showed some screenshots that didn't actually look like screenshots. Did you see those?
No.
You should. I'll try to find the screenshots and show them to you. I saw it like that. It was in a tweet, and so the picture was kind of small, and I thought it was concept art. And then I enlarged it, and you can tell that there's actual in-game assets in there.
That's great.
And it was like, I don't get those moments a lot, of like actually being fooled by a game screenshot, but I was by this one. So apparently they're adding a whole new area.
Part of me is grateful that a company called CD Projekt Red can be successful.
Based out of
nowadays.
Poland.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're just that's what I've noticed, that the production of The Witcher 3 is so good.
Yeah.
Like, it is made so well. This is a superbly crafted game on every level. And even just on... So I noticed dithering is very apparent in Metal Gear Solid 5. That when you look at, like, bushes, if they're close to the camera, the way that they fade out is through something called dithering, where they kind of do it through dots, and they find certain approximations of color tones until they fade out completely.
I went really deep into that stuff at one point, where someone actually posted a blog post about Grand Theft Auto 5's like graphical process of like step by step what's going on in each frame, what's being built, and it was really interesting. I might actually look that up and link it in the description. But anyway, go on. It was really interesting if you're interested in that stuff.
Yeah, and what I noticed was that the Fox engine is incredible, and I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
But for all that work that went into that, the dithering in The Witcher 3 looks better. That when an object is close to the camera, the way that it fades out, it does it the same way, but it looks more natural. And I don't really know what technically has made it look more natural, but they put the effort in, and they made it supremely polished.
Yeah. I mean, The Witcher 2 looks really good too. I'm playing it,
especially for its time.
We both have played it quite a bit after. It came out several years ago, a little less than several, like more than 3 years ago, I think. And graphics haven't changed a lot in that time, but like, Witcher 2 could be a brand new game, and I'd be totally fine with the way it looks and more. Like, it actually looks fantastic. And then 3, I think it's the same engine or like a derivative of the engine, but it's open world, and Witcher 2 wasn't really as open, and it's just amazing what they do with what you can assume is a pretty small budget. I mean, not as big as like Metal Gear Solid 5, for example, but they do amazing things with it, and I think part of the reason that things like dithering are less noticeable is because the art direction is so effective, where you don't notice it because you're not looking for it or not looking at it. You're just absorbing the world as a whole. And God, yeah, it's very well made. And yeah, CD Projekt Red, just in general, in every aspect of that company, it's refreshing. It's a ray of hope in the video game industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I mean, this year's been great regardless of The Witcher, but like they they make such great games, and God, they've got that Cyberpunk game coming out. I don't know
Cyberpunk
when.
2077.
Yeah, and that's got to be a good game. I I love that company. And they support their games really
Oh
well
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, giving you bang for a buck for when it's DLC and also doing free updates. It's cool. Good for them.
Good for them. And I don't have much more to say for my week. Skip, you said you didn't do much. Well,
I didn't.
Why not? Tell us a story. Something interesting about your life.
Oh jeez. Well, I went to Nashville over the weekend.
Okay, how was that?
It was all right. I watched a basketball game. Auburn played MTSU and
You
lost.
saw live?
Yep,
You were there?
in person, live in
Wow.
person.
Wow.
It's fun to go to basketball games live. It's I can't watch them on TV because in basketball only like the last 5 minutes really matters. But when you're there in person, it's way more
Yeah.
it's way more entertaining. And the crowd gets amped up when the team's doing well. I love the way the crowd responds to what's happening on the court and like how quickly the mood can shift. And how it, I guess, the classic thing is that you feel like you're actually you can actually yell out and the players hear you. You know, people are trying to mess up free throws and stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. I love going to basketball games. I don't do it very often though, but yeah. And then we went out to the bars, and I don't know. I don't have an interesting story really. It was just your typical night out. I wish I was a crazy enough person to tell you an awesome story, but I'm not.
There you have it, folks. Skippy is a crazy partier.
Yeah, yeah. I get down and crazy.
Okay.
Partying.
So System Shock 3 officially confirmed, right?
Did we talk about this last week?
We did.
Okay.
System Shock 3 was, I don't know, at this point I don't know if it was a leak or a rumor that was heavily supported, but whatever it was, System Shock 3 has now been officially confirmed, whatever that means. Whatever. It's technically happening now.
Yeah.
I guess what you can say.
I mean, I think it's exciting, but also...
Yeah, I mean, it's ripe territory. I mean, you can't deny that there's interesting stuff you could do with the System Shock premise.
I'm
it's
glad
just whether or not they're gonna do it well is.
I'm glad that they're doing that instead of just a remake. Like you're getting so many of, getting so many remakes now, and someone's actually deciding, let's just fuck it, make a sequel, and they'll probably do a remake also. But yeah, it's cool to see. I hope they do it justice. But I was never a huge. I never played System Shock except like later on, way after it came out, and I didn't stick with it. So I don't know. And BioShock I never got into either. So if it's something like those games, it's probably just not for me.
That would be something I'd be interested in, is an HD remake of System Shock 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an HD remake that I would actually check out, for sure.
I haven't finished System Shock 2, and it's not because I didn't like it or anything. It was just too dated for me. I feel terrible for saying that, but like it's just hard. It's hard to go back to that.
Yeah,
it's not as good as what we have now, and that's just
a
plain simple fact.
The inventory and skill management systems in that game don't work the way you expect those kinds of things to work because you've been playing them a certain way for years now, and I think that's reasonable to. That's what made me stop playing. Is just like, okay, I can't. My mind can't shift to what this game wants me to, it's such a drastically different thing, and in some ways I like that, but it's also objectively worse in a lot of ways, like just the mechanics of it.
Yeah, for these old games, it feels like you should be able to like reset your mind and work from scratch, and oh wow, I have an agility stat. I should manage that carefully, but it just does. You don't think that way anymore.
Yeah.
Now you have certain ideas about what stats matter and what stats don't, and what it's hard to go back to that model. And maybe it's a better model where everything was valued equally, and everything was kind of uncertain.
I mean, it's pros and cons, right? Like Morrowind, so progressively, Elder Scrolls games have been getting kind of dumbed down in terms of skills and skill management and that kind of thing. But there were also this is something I liked about the Elder Scrolls, about Morrowind in particular, where you could exploit the mechanics in really crazy ways. So they were just inherently flawed in a lot of ways. Like people jump around constantly in those games just when they're traveling, and so their agility stat just goes fucking crazy. And
I did that in Oblivion, and I got like by halfway through the game, I was jumping up on rooftops with the single button press.
And it's cool, it's neat, but it's also totally fucked up and unintentional. And sometimes that stuff's cool. Sometimes it actually fucks up, what they're trying to do with the game. So I get the idea of making things simpler and more like there's a part of me that actually really likes the like brevity of that game design of like just here's as simple as we can make it, but also they take it too far in a lot of ways, especially when you're going into those games for complexity. But that's everyone's been debating that for literally decades. All right, got big news.
Big news, people. Kojima Productions is now a legitimate entity, baby. Hideo Kojima's contract expired officially on December 15th in the year of our Lord, Anno Domini 2015, and he is now free agent.
Well, he now has his own company.
Yes, he does have his own company. Kojima Productions is now its own company, but he does have a partnership with Sony.
Yeah. At first, I was really not too happy about that. Although, okay, Sony's fine, but I didn't like the idea of it being a console exclusive. But then, less than a day later, it came out that it's just going to be timed exclusives, not literally an exclusive.
When I read it, like the video on PlayStation's channel said that it's going to be a console exclusive.
Sure.
Which, from all my many long years analyzing the video game industry, we both now know means it's going to come out on PC, but it's going to be delayed.
Yeah, the terminology that they use for that stuff gets really confusing actually, and sometimes they
console exclusive.
Sometimes they use the same terminology to mean different things, but yeah, I'm happy those games will eventually be making it to the PC. Hopefully in a relatively timely fashion, but
the thing that made me happiest through all of this was not seeing the name Microsoft anywhere.
Yeah.
That's all I needed. Just don't partner with Microsoft, please.
I mean, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world.
Microsoft's maybe not better. Objectively, but for me, because I don't own an Xbox One.
Oh, sure.
I have a PS4,
But when's this game going to come out? By the time this game comes out, there might be a new generation of consoles.
No, I don't know about that. I think that the generations are going to get longer and longer. This one's going to be a long haul.
Maybe. Or I could also see it going shorter. I mean, you've got who knows what the fuck Nintendo's making.
Yeah, with NX, maybe it'll go shorter.
But
if Nintendo NX is more powerful than the PlayStation 4...
Yeah.
Then that'll clearly put pressure on.
I mean, we've reached the point in game development where it's harder to make games that push the limit of the systems because there's no point. Like people aren't the high graphics aren't really in demand anymore. Not the way they were last generation. So in that aspect, this generation could last a really long time if people continue not to care that much about how good their game looks. But also things like VR could push it forward depending on its popularity, because it's hard to do VR on not great hardware. Like it's a pretty demanding thing. So that stuff's really, really hard to predict. And I don't know. It is kind of relevant to this though. I don't know when to expect a game though. Like he's got the Fox engine, right? So
we don't know that. I don't think he does.
I don't know. I haven't heard.
I don't think he does. The last I heard, Konami owns the Fox engine.
That's fucked up. I guess they're using it for their
Pro
Evolution Soccer.
I don't know.
I don't either. But if they do have the Fox engine, that could make things a lot faster. It
he
would be
could
a lot.
just
It would be a big help.
it would be a help, but honestly, Unity and Unreal Engine are both they've both surpassed the Fox engine. On a technical level, they have. Like,
I wouldn't know.
I mean, I've been trying to keep track of that kind of stuff, and from what I can tell, Unity 5 and Unreal Engine 4 are on par or better than the Fox engine.
Yeah,
That there's
I
no
can't tell the
real
difference because
advantage for Konami.
those game engines have become good enough and versatile enough that it's a lot harder to say like, oh, this is clearly like it used to be. Unreal Engine 3 had a style to it. Like, you
Oh
could
yeah,
tell
yeah,
a
yeah.
game was it had like that shiny texture and glossiness.
Yes, everything had
Yeah,
this like really distinctive sheen.
yeah. I didn't like it. I did not like the look of those games. And then like Unity games also used to have a pretty distinct like simplicity to them. Like they were several years behind their time. But now
That's
they've
been the
caught up
weirdest
completely.
thing. That Unity used to be like a joke.
Yeah, like literally, you'd say, "Oh, here comes a game on Unity," and it would be like you'd think of a glitchy mess.
When I think of Unity, honestly, first I think of Autism Simulator. That game where you like walk around a playground as
Oh
an autistic
yeah,
kid, and then when you get close to people, it makes a bunch of screechy, staticky noises. That's what I think of when I think of Unity.
yeah.
That and this other game where you're like walking around this space abyss
I
looking
don't
for
have like any
radio signals.
specific games in mind, but I just think of like characters moving with very simple animations and
Yeah.
like a not great lighting
It
system and
doesn't feel
just
like a real engine,
yeah.
but there's you can make legit stuff out of it. I mean, they've shown that you can.
Well, the newest, yeah, I mean, the newest iteration of Unity is apparently really good. Like you can make whatever you want
It's
with it,
on
basically.
par at least with Unreal
Yeah, and Unreal had to change their whole pricing schedule or pricing
model
uh yeah model
to keep
to
up with
compete
Unity.
basically
Yeah.
because Unity was good enough to be an actual alternative. It's that stuff's exciting because like
Oh,
it's become a lot easier
absolutely.
to make games that are really really awesome looking. Uh,
Yeah,
Everyone was like
like
freaking out for a while of how like oh games are getting too hard to make, and so we're reaching a point where like we can't make better looking or better running games because it'll cost too much development time. But the engines get better as we go as well, and it actually becomes just as easy. Or I'm not a fucking game developer, so I'm probably talking out my ass, and there's maybe some game developer screaming at his screen right now. But like that's how it feels. Is that indie games are getting better and better looking with
yeah.
with not a whole lot more budget put into it, which is awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's getting cheaper to make good-looking games. I was about to mention Undertale for being an example of a game that was indie and good, but you can't
Graphically,
you can't like you can't say that Undertale was a product of its time, really. That it could have come out in 2011,
yeah,
right?
easily.
That it's not like technology enabled that to happen. That was a creative thing that just happened to have happened in 2015.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, indie game development is getting more accessible. I've honestly yet to see an indie game that gets me excited.
Like graphically or just in general?
In general, I don't care about
Well,
graphically.
Undertale got you in.
Undertale. I know what you're saying there, but what I mean is there isn't a significant presence of indie games in the good game circle, if that makes sense. Like
Well,
there's
yeah. I mean, like they
indie
still
games
haven't
aren't good.
become. They still haven't become. They still haven't become like legitimately toe to toe with AAA games. I guess is what you're saying. But I do think they're getting
It's more
close,
depressing
and I
than
don't.
that to me. I think that the AAAs are staying the same and indies are shooting for a lower bar. It's
Maybe
just
I don't mind indies shooting for a lower bar though. I like indies being smaller experiences in general.
I
Like
like
Vanishing of
them
Ethan Carter.
I
Think
like
about
them
that game.
being limited in their scope, but I want them to go for it as hard as they can. Ethan Carter did that.
Yeah.
that within what Ethan Carter was going for, Ethan Carter did its job
Yeah.
phenomenally. And actually, just as a tangent, I downloaded the Unreal Engine 4 version of that, and I plan to replay it because that's a really good looking game on Unreal Engine 3, and I want to see what it looks like on 4.
The newest one is the only version I played. I played it after that came out, and it looked good, but I don't know how much better it looks than the original. So,
but that an indie game can look that good is a statement.
Definitely. Really. And yeah, I mean it's a very fleshed out game too. Like,
yeah. It doesn't just look good.
It's not like small as you would expect an indie game to be. It's short, but like they've built a pretty sizable, actual world.
You go places.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I'm more optimistic. I like the way the video game industry is looking at the moment. Like 2015 was just a huge boost of optimism for me.
I agree.
Just a huge variety of awesome games from tons of different places, and it makes me a little scared for like next year not being nearly as good as this year, but that would be a hard standard to reach. So
next year we have The Last Guardian, and that's all I need. That's it.
That is gonna be a good game.
Yes.
I don't know if it'll live up to the hype though.
I don't think it really needs to. That a lot of the hype came from it being kind of a limbo state for a while, and
I mean, I guess people were probably expecting that game to be exactly what it is.
Now that it's been officially announced, I'm expecting something like Ico or Shadow of the Colossus, and that's what it's going to be.
Yep, which is awesome.
Yes.
All right.
The haves.
Have you seen Nintendo's patent?
Is this the NX Touch thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've patented a controller that is also a screen, sort of like the Wii U controller, except more screen, less controller. There's two. It's basically just like a normal looking, very large controller without buttons, just two joysticks, and the screen goes all the way across, so like around the joysticks and everything. And I guess it has a touchscreen to press the buttons.
If you were going to replace anything with touchscreen, it should be buttons, not analog sticks.
I hate touchscreens.
I do too. But what I'm saying is,
I know what you're saying.
You can do so much more with analog sticks than with analog buttons.
Yeah, like emulating an analog stick on a touchscreen is a terrible experience.
Impossible.
And you can do a button just fine because all it requires is a tap, but still,
it's not great.
That. It looks terrible, but that does not mean that they're doing anything with it. And it's actually, I would say it's more likely than not completely unrelated to the NX, because this was, considering that the NX has been in development, it would be weird for them to make a patent for this all of a sudden. And I don't know, it doesn't. People are freaking out about it a little bit, and I don't see it. I think it could just be completely a red herring.
There's no reason to freak out.
Yeah.
If you're a Nintendo, you say, "Hey, we've got touchscreen games. We want to really get down that touchscreen market, baby." And so what you do is you put together a working prototype of a fully touchscreen controller. Once you have a working prototype, you file for a patent.
Yeah.
And then you have it, and that's all you do. Like, it doesn't really mean all that much more.
Yeah, we might never see it. It might just completely not be a thing. In fact, probably more likely than not.
All that means is that if they ever decide to do something with it, then they've got the patent. That's it.
Yeah. But we are getting extraordinarily close to the release of the NX. Did you realize that, I think that they scheduled that for a 2016 release?
What they said is that they're going to give more information in 2016. That's it.
I've heard rumors of a 2016 release, and I don't know the origin, but we are getting close.
I've heard rumors as well. I'm not inclined to believe
Wasn't the Wii U shown at the E3 the same year that it was released in stores?
I couldn't actually tell you because
Pretty sure it
the
was.
Wii U was marketed so poorly. I didn't really know what
It
it was
was. It
until
was
after
very.
it came out.
But like I think they had it playable on the show floor at E3, and that's the first time anyone saw it or even knew what it really was, or what it was called. And then like a few months later, they had it demoed in stores, and then it was out those holidays. I don't know why they would change that for the NX, like change that release. Well, I do know because the Wii U was a failure, but I feel like if they're gonna show it at E3, which they've said we're gonna show shit at E3, that you would the logical conclusion would be 2016 holiday release, but uh, who knows? I'm just interested to see what the hell it is.
Me too.
Because it's going to be something interesting. It's Nintendo. It's hardware from Nintendo. It's going to be something unique. I hope it isn't something completely shit. I'd say there's about a 50% chance.
This is their moment.
Yeah,
they could
make it or break it a little
they
bit.
could push themselves well above the competition at this point because there's no way a PS5 is coming out in the next 2 years.
They're not. They're not going to be directly
chance.
competing with the next generation of consoles. No way.
So, like, no, I'm not talking about Nintendo. I just mean there's no way that Microsoft or Sony are going to respond with a PS5 or an Xbox 722, whatever they fucking call it. But like, if there was ever a time where Nintendo could assert technological dominance, it would be now.
Yeah. And that technological dominance doesn't have to be like first thing people think of is hardware and how powerful it is, but technical dominance could mean a unique innovation in how you play the game or how the game is, who knows, transmitted or whatever. If it's unique and it works, then suddenly you've got another Wii on your hands where it's like, holy shit, everyone wants this thing because it's the only thing out there that's doing it. I'd be interested. It's gonna be. I guess it's not a direct. It won't be a direct competitor or anything, but it's kind of interesting that this is gonna probably be coming out very soon after VR is becoming a thing. And
that's true.
And so you're gonna have potentially two crazy on their own things in the video game hardware front. I don't know. I'm excited for VR. I'm thinking that could actually be really cool. The stuff they showed at the PlayStation Experience had some potential.
I am so, and I know many people are thinking along these lines, that I'm hesitant to adopt this technology early. I only ever want to own one VR headset. I just don't want to have to do more than that. I want to buy one thing, and I want that to be my thing, period. And
I mean, it's looking like what you're gonna have is if you want one for the PS4, then you're gonna get the Sony one, obviously. And if you want one for just playing your games and not, so if you want one for like more of a crazy immersive living room experience of like getting up and moving around, that's what Valve has been showing with the Vive or whatever. And if you want something to sit at your desk and use, it's probably going to be Oculus. I think that they're kind of being separated into like a little niches, but it's hard to say. And I also don't know who's going to buy the Sony one. I don't know. We're having some conversations in the chat.
Yeah, we are having a chat.
But yeah, I don't know. Like the Sony one seems like a terrible investment because you're locking yourself into a console, and maybe it's going to have some. Well, it definitely will have some exclusives, but it looks like it's going to be mostly shit that you could also do on the PC and a lot more on the PC. The PCs, you have to get this for the PC so that you can have I know that modders are going to have a field day retrofitting VR onto
here's the
older
thing.
games.
If you care about VR, you are not like unfamiliar with the PC ecosystem.
Yeah.
There's no way. And so even though the PlayStation VR is kind of interesting because PlayStation, let's be honest, in PlayStation's history, they've gotten some of the most quality like third-party developers exclusives for them. But really, if you're gonna invest in a new tech like VR, you want something flexible. You want
Yeah.
something that's gonna give you the most possible value for the money you put down. Um,
I feel like PlayStation's going for like the kind of
as
ignorant market of this looks like a neat thing to buy my kid for his birthday, or
Yeah, as a PS4 owner, I have a PS4. It's a couple centimeters from my feet right now. I will not buy a PlayStation VR. I would rather buy an Oculus because I want
Yeah.
something that works with my computer, something that's flexible, something I can use for anything. And that's just how it is.
I want.
If I'm the enthusiast market, that's what I want.
I hope VR does become a thing, and I really want to. I really want to see modders get behind VR and like mod it into shit that wasn't meant for VR. I want to see like
Yeah,
older
yeah.
games in VR, just stupid shit like that. That's just fun to mess with. Like
I want solitaire VR, baby.
hell yeah, give it to me. When the cards flip up on the screen, you're like freaking out. Um, but yeah, I actually do think that VR could be like maybe not the next big thing or anything, but a successful alternative to no, it's not even really an alternative. It's just a God. What do you call it? There's nothing. It's
It's not
almost like
really an
owning a joystick, I
alternative, but
guess. Like you play certain kinds of games and you want a certain kind of experience, and it's never going anywhere because you're always going to have people using it. I hope that's what VR becomes. It's not going to take over the gaming market. It's not going to be 3D TVs. They're the next thing. Everyone's going to have one. But
that's just bullshit. I mean, 3D TVs, everybody you expected. 3D movies are big. People are gonna buy
I saw
3D
people
movies.
saying it was the next color,
I
and
don't
that
think
everyone was.
I don't think VR is a trend necessarily. That
Yeah,
there is a legitimately cool aspect to seeing things that way.
yeah,
That you can put that on anybody's head and they're gonna think, wow. So long as that's true, I think there's a market.
yeah.
3D
And
is not the case.
if VR actually delivers in the way that people are talking about it, like I haven't experienced any of the. I experienced one of the very earliest Oculus Rift things. My cousin bought one, and it was just the dev kit,
Yeah.
and the resolution was terrible, so bad that most games were completely unplayable with it. Uh, but if they've actually sorted that stuff out the way that people talk about, and that it's actually gotten to the point where people are literally amazed by some of the things that they see in VR, that could be it could be huge, and
To
yeah,
tell you the truth, I have never put any kind of AR thing on my head. I'm excited to eventually do that. I
yeah,
want to see what it looks like.
yeah, definitely.
It'll probably impress the shit out of me.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity alone, it's like if the Oculus is whatever $200, like I could dish out $200 to see this crazy new tech stuff that might not actually go anywhere. I don't know. I think that Oculus will be the thing. I don't think that Vive is gonna.
Yeah.
I don't think there's gonna be like direct competition where half the people are using one and half are using the other. I feel like Vive's gonna do its own thing. Valve hasn't pushed like they didn't push their Steam machines that hard or anything. Like it seems like they
Yeah.
just come out with this experimental hardware just to see what they can do with it. I don't know what they're really thinking with that stuff, but hopefully, God damn it, hopefully you don't have games coming out specifically. This is a Vive game, this is an Oculus game, exclusive for these systems. That would be fucked up.
It would be fucked up, but really, if you're gonna have stuff like this survive, you need exclusives. You need, like, reasons to buy into the exclusive ecosystem.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Last thing on the list. Did you see the
The CSGO update.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I've got one minor similar thing,
Okay.
but that'll
Is it
I'll
Smash
do
related?
after. It is.
I haven't actually played this since the update, but CS:GO came out with an update that everyone's freaking out about because they added. It's actually really cool, but horribly unbalanced. They added a revolver into CS:GO.
I heard this.
Yeah.
I haven't
And-
played CSGO since like last year. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad about that every day, but please tell me.
The revolver's really cool looking. The concept is that to shoot the revolver, you have to pull back the hammer first. and it gives you well, you're not pulling it back with your thumb, or like the guy on the screen is just pulling the trigger, and the hammer has to go back, and then he pulls the trigger all the way, and it goes forward. So it takes like I don't know 3/4 of a second to actually shoot the gun, and you can't just keep the hammer back. You have to wait 3/4 of a second, and then it fires. And so it's kind of like I guess, did you ever play like Halo 3 or whatever that had the Spartan laser? It's kind of the same concept of like it shoots when it shoots, and you have to time it kind of.
Yeah.
And the crazy part of it is that it is literally as powerful as an AWP.
Fuck Counter-Strike.
It is a one-hit kill from like close to medium distance or something, and then like 99 damage.
If you play Counter-Strike right now, you're a fucking piece of shit.
Damn, shit. I kind of want to get back into it. But you can also right-click and fire it just wildly, and it's just a random spread and not very accurate. But like close range, that shit, it's like having an auto shotgun that also is one-hit kill. It's a bunch of bullshit.
If there's anything Counter-Strike needed, it's ambiguously overpowered sidearms.
I assume they're gonna nerf it drastically very soon. I mean, the same thing happens with like every major update where they like add something big to the game, is that it's crazy off balance, and then they fix it. Actually, the thing that nobody's talking about that's actually a crazier thing to me is that they made like really small tweaks to the M4 and the AK, which are the two main weapons in the game, where they don't work the way they used to. Like, they're a little bit nerfed. You can't tap shoot accurately as quickly as you could. You have to wait longer, which is weird because those guns were fine the way they were. I don't know what they're thinking with that game. So it seems like they're making a lot of updates that aren't really necessary. But who knows? I don't know. I like that game a lot, and I want to see it supported in a good way that keeps it going. And I hope they don't just ruin it.
So there you have it, folks. Skippy is a terror sympathizer. Please send him all of your emails related to terrorism and the Bush administration. Skippy, you like hearing about the Bush administration, right?
I do.
Okay, please send him emails about George W. Bush.
Send me the emails. Let's hear about Smash and then end this shit.
Yeah, this is minor, but Smash. There's been more and more. I don't want to quite call it controversy, but the the Project M community is mostly centralized around Reddit. There's a Project M subreddit that has quite a bit of readership called r/SSBPM, and the moderators, some of them, are members of the Project M development team. Those people, as you may know, have since disowned Project M as a project. And the discussion that's going on right now is whether or not the community should stick with Project M 3.6, which is the last officially released version of Project M by the Project M development team, or whether people should move to Project M 3.61, which was leaked, but all it did is fix a couple of bugs in Project M 3.6. When the project shut down, they said Project M 3.6 is the last official version. But the problem is that anybody can just download this 3.61.
Why would they say that? Is there some kind of glitch in 3.61 or something?
Yeah, there is, or 3.6. In 3.6, there are a couple of issues. They're relatively minor, but it's like Kirby has a certain neutral B if he absorbs Ganondorf, and Link's grab is broken. I mean, the difference between 3.6 and 3.61 are very few minor bug fixes and 2 new costumes for characters. That's it.
But why would they proclaim 3.6 as the official one?
Well, this is what I think, and this is what has come out, is that basically they hired a lawyer to see if, they've been planning to do this for a while, but they hired a lawyer to consult with them. How legal is what we're doing? What can we get in trouble for? And the lawyer basically told them, you're going to get fucked. Like, you are using Nintendo characters, Mario, Zelda. You could get destroyed. Which, is not implausible. Nintendo hasn't chosen to do that, and they wouldn't. But the fact is they could. So they were probably advised to disown this project as fast as possible. And that seems to be what has happened.
But why not say 3.61 is the official version?
It's so weird, right? It seems like they weren't quite ready to release that yet, but they were told they had to at a certain point,
That's weird.
Either way, my argument is that they said what they had to say, they have covered their ass, they have done what they need to do, their job is done. Project M as a game will now exist however we choose it will exist. And as a tournament organizer, whenever I have a Project M tournament, I'm not going to run 3.6, I'm going to run 3.61. That's just what I'm going to do. There's been this movement that we have to respect what the original developers wanted, and I'm just not on board with that. That they said things that they had to say to cover themselves legally. Whether or not we adhere to that is up to us. I'm not going to adhere to it, and I hope others don't. It's just a shame, because it's a very community-driven project.
Seems like they should have just opened up all the source stuff and just made it open source.
That's part of what was their problem, is that while they were legitimate, or however you call it that, while they were not under serious legal threats, they still kept everything closed source. And they built up some credibility, honestly, in being a legitimate game developer.
Yeah.
That people trusted them, that they wouldn't make stupid decisions about game balance or anything like that. They were viewed as a credible authority on certain things. It's just a shame for them to vanish like this. Because now we're left to sort out, what are we going to do? Are we going to use their last official version? Are we going to improve on it? And then there's a third branch that says we're not just going to improve on it, we're going to continue. But that seems to be less popular. Either way, it's a very difficult position to be in. Well, but what I will say is that at the Project M tournaments that I put on, we are going to use Project M 3.61, the unofficial leaked bug fix build. That is what we're going to use. Period.
Well, now that everyone's stopped listening,
thank you.
I guess we can wrap up our.
We can.
Now that everyone's eyes have glazed over and they've slowly nodded off.
They've nodded off into the eternal slumber of Project. Who knows? Guyran Rosling in the chat says that he's still been here, and that's all I need. Folks, thank you for listening to the Push Your Shot podcast. We sincerely appreciate your viewership. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with all your friends.
Thanks for your feedback on last episode, commenters.
Thanks for your feedback. Call your mother, tell her about this. Call your dad if he's not too disappointed in you. Tell him about it.
Tell your dog.
His friends. Your dog's friends need to know about this.
Push your shout. Tell your dog.
Push your shout. Dogcast. Thank you. Dog.